Perfect. Denim Richards, how are you doing today?
I'm well, I'm well. How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, I always feel like I get my broadcaster voice on when I start these.
I don't know, yeah, it's like the moment that you see recording started, it's like immediately it's like, all right, and action. Yeah, I know. Well,
Right. And then when it's done, scene. Oh,
it's
no. But thanks for stopping by today. I'm super excited to talk about Colby, Yellowstone, and just also to get to know more about you. Seeing you in some shows, different ones like Good Behavior. Don't ask me why I watched that show or if I'm why I got into it, but
it's a different, everybody has their own thing, so we don't judge.
thank you. So yeah, tell me about Colby. Tell me about season five. Tell me a little bit about the character. What should we expect for him this time around?
Yeah, it's just exciting to be back. Yellowstone season 5, the ratings came out a couple weeks ago, and we broke more records. So it's the number one show everywhere in the US. And so it's a pretty amazing thing that we had 12 million live viewers on the day of the show, and then 16, like a little over 16 million the couple days after, people that had recorded on DVR. So to have 60 million people watching for season 5 is unheard of. Usually as the seasons go on in a show, you start to see a little bit of a taper off, or kind of just a flattening
Yeah.
of audience. And so this one continues to skyrocket. I think it was a million more than we had for season 4. So that's amazing. So, just to be able to be a part of Yellowstone and the ride, and obviously for Colby, who's been a part of this life for 5 seasons. It's just exciting. This year we get into a little bit more trouble because John Dutton's not on the ranch because he's governor of Montana, and so that kind of forces us to be a little bit more liberal about the things that we do. Make some mistakes, but Colby's having a fun season so far. Getting to shoot some guns and wrestle cattle, and things of that nature. So it's been just a wonderful ride thus far.
Nice. I love to hear that. How has it been being on a show for this long, especially as an actor? That's one of the dreams that have to be on something. People are always like, I'll hopefully get the syndication one day. But how does it feel to at least be on something that is breaking records, that has been consistent, where people can be like, hey, oh, that's Colby. You know what I mean? It's like, is it a dream come true, or is it one of those things where you're just like, hey, I'm working. I don't even think about it like that.
No, you definitely think about it. I would say, like you were saying, that the goal for every actor is to just be on something, right? And then once you're finally on something, then it's like, I hope I can stay on whatever this something is. And then you hope that you just don't get killed. So it really is like it's really an exciting journey. Well, it's been 5 years. So since 2017, which just seems like a lifetime ago. And it's been really exciting also because so many of the people that are in this cast I've become really close friends with, and our families know each other now, and and all these other things. So it's such a different, it feels like exactly like what it felt like when I was playing sports when I was younger, how you're kind of always in this foxhole with people, and that becomes your community, and then it starts like life outside of it feels very strange because you're just kind of used to us all being together, especially because we shoot in Montana. So we are all together. We don't shoot in these big cities where you kind of, you can go be on set, and then the moment you wrap, you can go watch a basketball game or go to like all these different entertainment vessels, right, that a big city has to offer. So we're always together. But like you were saying, it's a tremendous blessing to be able to be in it. It's very surreal. Even when I was in New York just a couple days ago, like walking around Times Square, and people are noticing you in Times Square, and you have a hoodie on and sunglasses, and it's a very surreal type of thing. But it really just speaks to what the audience engagement and the uniqueness of the show. And I think that because of Taylor Sheridan, who's the co-creator and showrunner for this, and the writer, he's really created and carved out such a specific and special niche. And for me to be able to be a part of that, it's like, what else could you ask for?
Nice. I love that. Take me back 5 years ago when this came across your desk. Did you think that Kobe was going to be that role for you? And then how did you even land it? What did you do that you feel like, man, I know I stood out?
Well,
Obviously.
I did a film like just prior to Yellowstone called Mumford Chickasaw Rancher, which is out on Netflix now. And that is like Martin Sessmeyer, who is, and Tommy Flanagan, who is in Sons of Anarchy. And so I was doing this scene with Tommy Flanagan, and at the end of it, he was like, man, he's like, you know, my one of my best friends, John Linson, who's the co-creator of Yellowstone, was also one of the EPs for Sons of Anarchy. They're doing this new show called Yellowstone. It's also a Western. The movie that I was doing was a period piece in the 1860s, so it was a Western as well. So we were doing, you know, riding horses and doing some cattle pushing, not anything close to the intensity that we do it on, you know, on Yellowstone, but nonetheless, it was still in the same vein, in the same pocket. So he was like, you got to tell your team to get on, you know, get you on. And I was like, if only it was that easy just to like get me on something, right? Especially 5 years ago, it was like, bro, probably not. But nonetheless, I did call my team, and I was really excited because I was on set, so I was kind of already in that the juices were flowing. It was my first you know, co-starring feature film, so I was like super just like, let's keep this momentum going. And so, you know, my team was able to get in contact with the casting director, John Papsideris' office. We sent him like videos and photos from Mumford Chickasaw Rancher from, you know, set. And then they called me in and, you know, did the audition. And then about 24 hours later, I was in the producer's call back with John Linson and Taylor Sheridan. And Taylor kind of was on Skype because he was in Utah preparing for the pilot. You know, he was just telling me about what Colby was and, you know, what his kind of overall plans were for the show. Very, you know, not as super detailed, but just enough for me to be like, I really want to be on the show.
Yeah.
And so after that, it took about 6 weeks, 7 weeks before I got a phone call. And it was probably the most stressful 6, 7 weeks of my life because my team would call me constantly, you know, sometimes just to like check in. And I was like, don't call me for anything unless it has to do with Yellowstone. Like, oh, we just wanted to see how you're doing. Don't worry about how I'm doing. Just only pick up this phone and call me physically if it has to do with Yellowstone. Anything else outside of that, send me a text message or an email.
He was like, don't add more stress. So already a stress.
I don't have the time. I just didn't have it. So when I finally got the phone call, I remember I was sitting in Santa Monica parking because I was getting ready to go to dinner. And, you know, then my manager is on the phone and she starts screaming. And then I was like, okay, like now the journey really begins. But we never knew that it was going to turn into this. And so from what it's been from 5 years ago, it's really been a tremendous blessing.
Nice. I love that. Now, tell me, how did you get into acting? I know you spoke a little bit about having a sports background. So, was it one of those things where you've always wanted to, but you went the sports route because family, or you maybe also had dreams of, you know, of being a professional athlete?
No, I was, you know, I got thrust into the acting world when I was like 5 years old. You know, I was at a school that would do all these kind of performing arts shows and things of that. It wasn't a performing arts school, but it leaned to the performing arts kind of way. And so, you know, I always had a lot of energy and, uh, you know, my teachers were like, we got to channel this somehow. And he seems to like to be seen and he likes to talk a lot. And so nothing much has changed really. But nonetheless, they asked me if I wanted to do this performance or my family that if I wanted to sing this solo for like 300 or 500 people in this arboretum. And I said yes. And I loved it because I got to be pulled out of class while everybody else was, you know, learning how to do like 1+1. And I was like, well, who cares about that? Let's go perform. So I finally was able to perform. I love the feeling of it. But because I didn't grow up in a family that really knew about the performance arts and things of that, it wasn't like it was heavily cultivated, but it was very supported. And so, you know, just as life went on, I got more into playing basketball and things of that nature, but I always loved that performing arts. And it wasn't really until I was maybe 14, 15 years old that I really got back into like the heavy acting of it all, whether it would be like doing theater and musical theater and things of that nature. And then that kind of very slow molasses going up a hill, like, you know, in winter type of slow progression to where we are now.
Nice. I love that. So, what do you love about acting? Why does it wake you up in the middle of the night and in the morning that like thinking about scenes or thinking about the next thing, or even just staying in an industry that's so tough and that's nothing's guaranteed? You know what I mean?
Yes, it's one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life by far. I think one of the things that I love about it was many people early on said that I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I remember so many different times, especially in my preteens, or not, I would say my preteens, my earlier teens, and then my mid 20s or early 20s. And, I had a lot of friends that, were graduating college and they were going on to law school and they were getting this degree and that degree, and Denim was getting auditions. And that wasn't the same, that didn't like, it didn't have the same ring as, when you're going to your friends, graduation from college. So, but nonetheless, I think that was like, it was something that I always knew I was going to do. It was like, I knew when I was 5 years old that this is what I was going to do. I always resonated with it. I think that earlier on I had so much energy. I still have a lot of energy, but it was very unfocused. And so I needed to learn how to take all this kind of nervous energy, wild energy, and kind of focus it and like really hone it in and scope it.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to be able to do that. But what helped me get up in the morning was knowing that this was already inside of me. But it very much did help me knowing that there's so many people around different places that I was at that never thought that I was going to be able to do this. And so that definitely helped. And then as the years went on, that started to dissipate a little bit more. And then I started just kind of competing against myself and studying the great ones like the Harry Belafontes and things of that nature, and Sidney Poitiers. And, just looking at the struggles that they had in the time that they were really trying to break into the industry and really, taking hold of it. And, then looking at the people like the Denzels, which is like our generation, Sidney Poitier, right? And so that was very helpful for me. And so that just kind of became a natural progression. But, as an athlete, you kind of use whatever energy you have around me, and that energy, especially very early on in my early 20s, of people thinking that I couldn't do it, definitely helped me want to get up at 5 a.m. and stay up until 2 a.m. to just really hone this craft.
Nice. I love that. How did you cancel out the noise, especially because the people telling you that you couldn't do it are the ones you're looking to be your support system? It's not like a stranger off the street that just doesn't know you. Like, Denim, we don't know you. You're like, look, bro, this is brunch. Like, why are you telling me I'm not going to be able to do this? Or how are you going to tell me you don't have faith in me when you have faith in everybody else?
Yeah, I think one of the things that helps is you really do have to believe in yourself. And I do think, there's that fake it until you make it. But I do think that with certain industries in the world, certain jobs, certain businesses, you have to believe it from the beginning that you're going to be able to do it. You may not have the roadmap, you may not have the path, you may not have the whole picture, but you just know that this is what it needs to happen. Like, this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And so I think that was something that really helped me, because I really wasn't good at anything else. Like, I had almost like sabotaged myself in school, where it was like, look, if this acting thing doesn't work out, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. So, we might as well start to really like hunker down into this. But the reality for me was, I didn't, instead of like trying to cancel out the noise, I wanted to embrace the noise, because like you were saying, you would be at these some conversations with certain people, and some closer than others and things of that nature. Never really like close, intimate family, of course, but and you would be at something like brunch, and there would be a comment of, well, like, how long are you going to continue to pursue something like this? And and at some point, you'll kind of grow up and realize that doing something, and you take that in. But then they just go on, because in their mind it's realistic to say that. Like, it's not unrealistic to tell somebody that wants to be an artist or an actor, especially when they don't have family that's in that world, that's not something that's really to be cultivated, if you will. And so I just embraced it, and I allowed that to be my fuel. But I will tell you, in full disclosure, that it was very paralyzing when I went into auditions, because I would start making every opportunity the opportunity, if that makes sense. Like, I would walk into an audition, even if it was for a guest star, and if it was just like, ma'am, here's your coffee, right? I turned that opportunity into I'm going to prove everybody right or everybody wrong if I book this. And so now I'm putting all of this unnecessary pressure on myself. So that really was challenging. And for about 4 or 5 years, it killed me. Like I wasn't able to book anything because I was carrying this weight. And so at a certain point, you have to start to be able to put that back in the subconscious and live fully in the moment. And then as time goes on, you look up now and occasionally people will message me that I haven't spoken to in a decade, and that's always, interesting, but it is what it is.
Nice. I love to hear that. And then you said that it was like 4 or 5 years where you weren't booking, right? And it was hard for you. How did you sustain yourself spiritually and mentally and emotionally during that time? Especially because you have these naysayers, you have other people you're meeting along the way that are booking. How did Denim say, this is Denim's path? It's tough. I might want to give up every other day, but I'm not going to give up.
Well, I think it does go back to what else was I gonna do, right? Like I wasn't gonna be in the NBA. Like that was like a thing for me. I was like, oh, I want to be in the NBA. I was like, bro, you're not gonna be in the NBA. Stop. Like that was the thing, even for myself. It's like, bro, you're not gonna be in the NBA.
Yeah.
But I still love playing basketball. I still to this day play it very often. But I think for me, I think really it was I had a level of confidence that most people probably would look at as being cocky or arrogant. And somewhere in my mind, I thought if I just flipped this switch, then it would all work out. But I just didn't know what that switch was or like how to tap into it. But I knew that there was a switch. And for a long time, right, you kind of struggle, as a younger artist and as a man getting caught up in the distractions of what the industry is, wanting to go out all the time, wanting to be seen in these different areas where you think that people are, right? Because it's essentially like wanting to be like in proximity to success. And so when you want to be in proximity to success, you start to find yourself in places and scenarios that maybe is not really fruitful for where you are in your journey. And so that was something that was a big distraction. So as I was going, and again, like I lived in my car. I've had eviction notices served to my thing. I've had people from the cable company knock on my door and come in and take my cable box out of my apartment at the time. Those were those days were some days, and luckily, my family was always, when I told them, we're very supportive. I'm like, hey, if you need rent, we know we got you. But I was, as a man, it was very, very challenging for me to like, hey, next month is going to be different. I have a call back, for this next thing. I just need some money for this, right? And then 27 days later, you're like, hey, dot dot, so dot. It's like, so it just becomes those things. But at a certain point, what I did realize was you have to show up for every opportunity. And one of the things I didn't do, I didn't show up to every opportunity early on. I wanted to hang out with my boys. I wanted to play, Xbox, right? I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to go and, chase women. I wanted to do all of those things, but not realizing that none of those things were feeding my career, feeding my business, feeding my soul, feeding my spirit. And so I had to kind of separate myself from a lot of those things so that I could get myself grounded and fully focused. And that was something that was really, really helpful for me as well when you're asking about kind of the mental and emotional aspect of it all.
Nice. I love that. I love it because it's something that I think is always a telltale sign, but a lot of times people don't listen to it. It seems like they only see it on screen when they're like, here's a movie about an aspiring actor. You're like, no, this is real. Don't go to that red carpet event. Don't go to the networking event. Maybe go to sleep. Maybe go to an acting class.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? You just want to be in proximity to success, and you can't fault anybody for wanting to do it because, especially if you don't have, people, if you didn't grow up around it, the moment that you see a red carpet event or you see a networking mixer, which is such a loaded term in and of itself, a networking mixer. Uh, but for us as young artists, we flock to that. A networking mixer, there's my opportunity. And then of course you get in front of like literally anyone, right? And it's like, what do you do? And you're like, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a director, I'm a producer, you're everything. And I remember one time I was standing with somebody that was successful, and somebody did walk up to them and they were asking like, hey, so what do you do? And I was a victim of this as well, but I wasn't in that scenario. but they had said like, yeah, I'm a writer and I also act and I've done some producing. And they said, stop. I said, what do you do well? Like, gun to your head, what would you say that you do? And they're like, well, writing would be a thing. So you're a writer. Everything else are things that you would like to do. And that was something that really resonated with me as well, is don't try to spray the thing everywhere, just trying to hit something. Be good at the one thing and allow that to be your break-in and your breakthrough. And then once you kind of broken in on that one thing, then you can start to cultivate these other tranches. Otherwise, you spread yourself so thin, you're never focused on one thing long enough to be good at it.
Nice. I love that. Look, I usually ask like what advice would you want to give, but you just this last couple minutes, you've already given enough advice. So I want to let you know that look, we're out of time. This has been great. I always like to be conscious of your time, and I always like to make sure the other person had a good time with me as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. No, this was a great conversation.
Perfect.